Hello, class, and welcome to week 7, where your final project is due. And this project is a culmination of milestone 1, milestone 2, and then a third section for optimization using Excel Solver. So, what I wanted to do as a tutorial is go through the file that I sent yesterday. Since it's basically in the format the final project should be in. And remember that do not cut and paste from milestone 1 and 2 to the final project. You need to actually show that you can do all the calculations and all the pivot tables. You can go back and look exactly how you did them in milestone 1 and 2 per this sheet, this file right here. And then recreated for milestone 3 as if you're creating a presentation to senior management top down with all your data and then the resulting solver. So let's start with this file that I sent you, QSO-320 final project student spreadsheet. The first thing in here is the data case study. And then the milestone 1 and 2 results. So you can look here, milestone 1, and you can see everything's in here as a pivot table, not as a cut and paste. So you can see what data was collected. You can see what pie chart and bar chart was generated, what the mean, median, and mode for the pallet sizes. This is basically everything you did in milestone 1. Now I notice here there's a mistake because this histogram is not correct. So let's delete that and regenerate it. So let me do the bin sizes and the frequency, insert recommended chart, frequency chart, press OK, and there, it regenerates the histogram correctly. I think it happened with Portland also. I don't know why from when I generated this, but I'll do the same thing. I'll recreate it, insert, recommended charts, frequency, OK, and then I will call this Portland so it's correct. Same with Riverside. Sorry I had to do this and correct this real time, but I guess it gives you an opportunity to see how easy it is to do that. And I will call this Riverside and move it over so it's not covering the histogram numbers, or the frequency numbers I should say. So there you are. With the correct histogram. So that was milestone 1. So then milestone 2, you were to look at the cost and profits to each distributor, especially Portland and Riverside. So what you did was created this table here for the cost of shipments. I won't go through it in detail since you already did this exercise. Cost of production, and these are all the correct numbers, cost of goods sold, and then the gross profit divided by the revenue, and then subtracted off sales tax. So that's the first 2 sections of the final project. And then, of course, the next section is optimizing performance. And here, you're going to look at what you can do to the bottle count totals to generate the most profit. And if you look at the data, just like you look at any word problem in math, you look at for what's given and then what is your objective that you're trying to calculate. So you notice what's given is that it's 3.5 pounds of grapes to make every bottle, whether it's red, white, or organic. The price per bottle, this is what they sell it for, not what it costs to make, because you're going to look at profit as how much you're selling it for. Of course, profit margin will take into account what it costs to ship it and what it costs to make, but your sales, your gross revenue is what it actually cost, what you're selling it for. So then it says you can produce up to, the supplier can give you up to 2,000 pounds of grapes for a 6-month supply of wine bottles. Now, the current market demand will not support more than the below constraints. So you're basically saying 22,000 bottles, 24,000, 12,000 bottles is the most you're going to sell of any wine of those 3 types. So again, given data, and then given data. It also says, with profit margin for each wine type you have gathered elsewhere, you are now ready to determine the optimum production mix to maximize profit margin. I'm going to go into a little bit more on that because that is actually not what you want to do, and I'll show you why. You want to maximize profit dollars using the profit margins for each type of wine. So when you go over to the solver table tab, you'll see how this one way of setting this up. You don't have to set it up this way, but this is one way of setting it up. And you'll see that I'm giving you the profit margin for each type of wine, because in milestone 2 it was calculated for Portland and Riverside, but we want to do this in total for the winery's total profit margin. So if I'm going to say here that red, white, and organic is $7.50, $8, and $12, I would say, okay, so I'm going to say price per bottle of red, $7.50, white, $8, and again, this is what they sell it for, so this is gross revenue, and $12. Then I'm going to say grape weight per bottle. We've already determined that that's 3.5 pounds is what it takes in grapes to make each bottle. And then one of the givens, I show it in yellow here, is that you can do 22,000, 24, and 12,000. So I could either type it in or link it. Linking's easier to me, so if your constraints were to change, it would link right through to the table. So, only problem is it needs to be a number. And when I linked it as text, so let me change that to a number. So then the total grape weight is going to be obviously number of bottles times grape weight per bottle for each of the 3 wines. Maximum number of bottles here, 58,000, is because of how many of each you're constrained to. Total grape weight, it's showing in the raw numbers, is 203,000 pounds. Well, that can't be because your constraint already said over here that you have a 2,000 pound of grape, 200,000 pound of grape maximum. So you're going to have to, that's going to be a constraint. So it doesn't matter that it shows this right now. In the solver, it'll get fixed. So then your sales are the number of bottles times the price per bottle. This is gross sales on each of these, meaning just how much revenue you bring in before expenses for production, shipping, overhead, and whatnot. Now your profit is going to be gross sales times the profit margin, 68%, 57%. I'm giving you these numbers. You can go back and calculate those based on milestone 1 and 2 with Riverside and Portland, but you'd have to do it for all 4 distributors as a whole and then plug those numbers in. So if you plug in different numbers, I'll accept that if you actually went back and calculated what the profit margins were for all 4 distributors combined. So then you took your sales times profit of each of those, and you see you have a sum of G4 to G6 based on this raw data. You have this profit. Now, I'll show you what I mean by if you try to optimize profit margin, what would happen. If you go into the solver and you say I want H7 to be what I optimize for, and I want to maximize that, and I want to change D4 to D6, which is the maximum number of bottles, and I can't be I have to be less than 22,000, 24, and 12 per the constraint in the description. And I also want E7 to be less than 200,000 pounds, because that's the maximum number of grapes I could use. If you could guess what's going to happen when you do that, I will show you. I solve here. I won't generate the reports because it's not meaningful. And look what it did. It gave me 68% margin, but it reduced my profit to 112,000, and it only produced red wine. And the reason for that is obvious, because profit margin for red wine is the highest. So if you were trying to optimize profit margin and you had defined margins, it's going to say, well, easy. Make the wine that gives you the most margin and you will have maximized profit margin. But that's not the intent. What you really want to do is maximize profit dollars based on those margins. So I go back and I recreate what was there. If I can remember it all, I think that's what it was, because the only thing it was changing was number of bottles per my constraints. But this time I run the solver and I use profit dollars to maximize, and I still change number of bottles, and I still have the same constraints. I can make 22,000 red, 24,000 white, 12,000 organic, and I can't use more than 200,000 pounds of grapes. So now I'm going to maximize my profit dollars based on those fixed margins, and the reason they're fixed is because we know what the cost per bottle is, the price per bottle, we know production cost, and we know transportation, so we know exactly what the profit margin is on red, white, and organic. If we were to change that, do something smart on the production line, that would be kind of a what-if scenario. So now I'm going to maximize profit and run this. So I'll say solve for that, and of course generate my answer, sensitivity, and limit charts. As a result, it says solver found a solution. And this is what it came up with. It said now I can make $286,000. You know, it said 290 before, but it exceeded the grape weight, so that wasn't really a feasible profit number. So basically, in order to get down to the grape weight, it had to find to reduce somewhere in the total bottles. So now I'm still at 58% profit margin. I'm making $286,000 of total profit. Based on this sales. I'm at 200,000 in grape weight, and I'm making this many bottles of each type of wine. So that's a more feasible solution for what we're looking for. I'll have to post something saying the profit margin will give you an incorrect result, and you need to look at the profit dollars. So if I look at the sensitivity report, it's telling me that my Lagrange multiplier for grape weight is the biggest driver, which you saw there, because in order to get under 200,000 pounds, we had to reduce the number of bottles we were making. So it shows a 1.37 Lagrange multiplier. And then the limit reports are showing the lower limits, which is basically you can make zero. This is the feasible limit, lower limit, that would still meet your objective. So zero, it could be done, and the objective results would be this. The upper limits, of course, for red, white are these, and that's the most number of bottles you can make and still meet your constraints. And your constraint was basically the total grape weight. So that's what the limit table tells you, is what the lowest number could be of each of these in your variables that you chose to change in Solver, and what the maximum number of each of them could be and still meet your constraints. Go back to the Solver table, and that is basically how this is done. If you have any questions, let me know. Please get this turned in by Sunday. It's worth a third of your grade, so take it very seriously on how you present milestone 1, milestone 2, and the Solver table in a logical top-down format, in a fashion that you would show to program management or your executive managers on why you came up with all these results and ultimately what they should be producing in order to maximize their profits based on calculated profit margins. So it's got to tell the whole logical story, and then of course you need to explain what all of this means. It's very important, and I will tell you, do not leave any sections blank in your submittal, because I cannot give partial credit when something's blank. I can only say not evident. You need to at least make an attempt at every parameter in the rubric, and I can give you partial credit depending on how close you are to exemplary, how accurate you are, and where you might have made any mistakes. So attempt everything that's on that rubric in order to get the most credit for this project. I appreciate your time, and hope you do well on this project. And of course, let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. I will also say one thing about previous assignments. Please make sure you turn all those in by the end of the week, even with a late penalty, so I can give you some partial credit, at least on all the assignments that have been late from previous weeks. Very important, because 0 points will definitely hurt your course average, and you really want to get partial credit or full credit minus the penalty wherever you possibly can. So thank you, and I appreciate you watching this video. You're already at a major advantage if you're listening to this video, because I get the idea that many students do not watch these videos based on what I see submitted. So if you're listening right now and watching this, you are already at a major advantage for doing well on this final project, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much, and have a great week. Bye.